Welcome back to Cardinal Territory. Another St. Louis Cardinals series win. We are recording this on Wednesday, April 16th. You're going to see it on Thursday, April 17th, though. The Cardinals took 2 out of 3 games from the visiting Houston Astros. Another well-pitched series, some good things to talk about. I'm your host, Katie Woo, back again with Bernie Miklasz. Bernie, what do you got?
I thought this was a great homestand for the Cardinals. I mean, it's not just that they were 4-2, but it could have been so much worse. But they won the third game against Philly. They won the third game against Houston. So they win each series instead of losing both series. And I'm very limited when it comes to math, unless I have a calculator. But let's just say the Cardinals would have lost the third game to the Phillies and the third game to the Astros. Their record would be 7-11. And, 9-9 is not like a great record, but it's if you're a Cardinals fan, it's surely preferable to be, it's preferable to 7-11, right? So, in a way, those are like big wins early in the season because you don't want to get too deep. You don't want to get in the mud. You don't want to be 7-11 and have to just like pull your way up from that. So, I thought they were 2 good saves, for the series. So I thought
so.
Yeah.
The phrase winning teams win series. And I thought the Cardinals did another really well-pitched series. Again, Sonny Gray was fantastic on Monday, just so dominant, 7 innings, 2 hits. Then Eric Fetty comes out, throws a quality start. And then, of course, Steven Matz today, we'll get into that performance. But when you pitch like that and you continue carrying on the rotation the way that it has through the last turn, you're going to win a considerable amount of ball games. And I don't even think this series was necessarily that entertaining, Bernie. I know we talked about it before we turned the cameras on, but the Houston Astros were like really boring to watch for 3 days. And I know we previewed the Cardinals Astros series with Crush City Territory, and their beat writer Chandler is one of my good friends. And we were talking about how the similarities between these two teams coming into the week. But I would go out on a limb here and say I think the Cardinals are a much more entertaining ball club right now than the Astros are. It was a good series, and I still felt like all 3 of those games were relatively uninspiring, and I think that's just the carryover from the way that the Astros looked.
I thought the way the Cardinals, took such great at bats against Framber Valdez was. See, I get into that stuff, and I think because we listen, the last couple of years, we've all watched so many dreadful at bats, non-competitive at bats. And so, they go into the first game of the series against Houston's ace or co-ace, whatever. And I thought it showed just a surprisingly positive indicator about how smart they're becoming. Like Valdez is known for his curveball. It's really good. It's really outstanding. In fact, he'd given up like 1 hit on the curveball all season, first 3 starts or whatever. So I think the Cardinals noticed that he was having a hard time locating it and he was leaving it up a little bit. And they went hunting for that curveball and they got it. He had like 5 hits on that pitch, and that's basically what ruined Valdez that night. And see, yeah, there were some like big hits that were kind of like got the crowd all fired up. So I just thought, I keep looking for signs that tell me this is a different lineup because it's a lot smarter, and they go into games, they're looking for certain things. And if they're a little caught off guard, then they seem to be able to adjust better than they have in the past. So I thought that was exciting. I'm a nerd. I love that kind of stuff. So, but it was a workmanlike victory. They beat their top guy. I thought Hunter Brown was excellent against Cardinals in the middle game. There wasn't much they could do with him.
No. Hunter Brown, we talked a lot about the pitchers that the Cardinals have beaten: Paul Skeens, Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, Framber Valdez. Hunter Brown is just as good and could be even better than some of the names we just mentioned. He's relatively new or young in his career. He was dominant. There was literally nothing they could do. I agree with you.
Yeah, he started throwing his sinker to left-handed hitters, which he hasn't done all early this season. And I think the Cardinals, this might have been an example where they were perhaps surprised by what the other pitcher chose to do. But surprised or not, he was just really good. And I thought today was a game where Wednesday just didn't know because, okay, what would be fair to expect out of Steven Matz? And I know the Astros starter today he's had one really good start, but he's gotten beat up a little bit too. So I wasn't entirely sure what to think he would do, but I think the big question was, okay, how would Steven Matz pitch after re-entering the rotation after working, how many games was it, 4 or 5 games in relief? And I think we got our answer. He was very impressive.
He was. Steven Matz, 5 innings pitched, 2 hits, 1 earned run, no walks, 5 strikeouts, and 71 pitches. He came into the game today on a rough pitch limit of 65. It was good to see him get through 5. He was really efficient. What I liked about Matz's outing is he led off the game with 2 singles up the middle, and I think Victor Scott II would like that cutoff throwback. I think on that second single, he'd go to second base, not third, and that ended up costing Matz a run because the next play is a ground ball to second base, probably a double play ball there, then you're going to get out of the inning. Instead, it's a put out to second and a run scores from third. But after that, Matz shut the Astros down, retired 15 straight. Like I mentioned, 5 strikeouts. And I agree with you. I wasn't sure coming into the start what was the best way to evaluate Matz, what would be fair. He looked great in spring. He's been in long relief. He's had to pitch kind of in a role that's relatively unfamiliar to him. And then he just comes in and he looks like he did in spring. And it was really encouraging to see. We talked to Steven after the game and he said, honestly, like it can be difficult. And we'll get into the 6-man rotation in the second segment of the show. But think about this, Bernie. The Cardinals were so intentional about deploying a 6-man rotation that we knew that Steven Matz's first start of the season would be April 16th, dating back to the last day of spring training. And the reason they did this, we'll, again, get into the majority of the reasons, but one of them was to ensure that Matthew Liberatore could have that consistent starting role in the rotation that we've talked about. And if you think about where Steven Matz is in his career, he's 33 years old. He's in the final year of his contract before free agency. He's a veteran of the game. Some veterans will not take it well if an organization comes up to them and says, hey, we have to do what's best for the younger guy here. So even though you pitched really well, we're going to put you in the bullpen. We'll give you some starts when we can, but we have to do what we think is best for this player long term. Some veterans could easily be like, okay, what about what's best for me? What about what's best for my contract? I'm going to be a free agent soon. And Matz was, in the words of Ollie Marmol, a total pro. I'll read this quote because I asked Matz after the cameras turned off why that was his reaction, why he was so easygoing about this, and why he agreed to it, and basically why he didn't really have an issue with it. And he said, here's his quote, I've had some frustrating points throughout my tenure with the Cardinals so far from a personal standpoint. Injuries, not having the success I wanted. This year, my main emphasis is to enjoy wherever I'm at. I'm healthy. I had a really good offseason. I had a good spring training. I feel really good. So whatever they decide, I'm just going to enjoy it and I'm going to compete. I think it's been really helping me. That first start, Bernie, I mean, certainly speaks to that.
Yeah, I admire, what he did. And he really is a terrific teammate. And the one thing I've said about Steven Matz, like in his first 3 seasons as a Cardinal, I mean, it was really, really rough stuff. He only averaged 11 starts and per season. They signed him to be $44 million to be a regular starter, but he kept getting hurt. And the only thing I would ever try to say, there was no defense in terms of his bottom line performance record because he wasn't able to pitch enough. But I always try to say, and I don't blame fans for being upset that, the Cardinals weren't getting their money's worth. But I always try to make people understand, like, he's not trying to steal anybody's money. He cares. He's a good guy. He was more disturbed about his inability to do what they signed him to do for 3 years. That really bothered him. I mean, it really kind of hit his pride. He doesn't want to be a bum. He doesn't want to be a guy that's got a reputation as like, well, he took the money. Yeah, he took the money and ran. And no, I think he wanted to really kind of repay the Cardinals for that investment. And so, listen, you're right, though. There would be some veterans that would just raise hell about this. Maybe not publicly, but they'd raise hell behind closed doors in the manager's office. But he didn't do that. He was a good teammate. He likes his fellow pitchers, and he fits in and he helps out, and he's got a really good personality and a really good attitude. So, on a personal level, I'm really rooting for this guy to have a nice year because again, it's not like he wanted to come to St. Louis and get hurt all the time and be unavailable. In fact, there's no way he would have been happy under those circumstances. So this is his time, and obviously he still has a lot to prove, but that was really good today.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was happy for him. And getting to know Steven over the last 3 years. I mean, you talk to the starting pitchers a lot because there's really only one day where you can't. And then they're in the clubhouse, they're hanging out, they're cracking jokes. So I've gotten to know Steven well over his Cardinals tenure, and each injury, you could just feel the disappointment like radiating from his body. Each time he wasn't able to answer the bell or he had a setback, and you could just tell he felt, I don't want to speak for him, but it almost was like he felt a little guilty that he'd
Right.
come over here and had not been able to consistently start. We're seeing a really healthy version of Steven Matz, maybe some less anxieties, just more free flowing, going out there and pitching. I thought Wednesday was a great first step. We'll see him start at least one more time. I think he lines up for April 22nd against the Braves. Same day Mason Wynn is eligible to come off the injured list, by the way, but we still do not know if he's going to require some at-bats in Memphis or what. He will not be in New York. He might rejoin the team in Atlanta. Stay tuned. But Bernie, you and I have other pressing things to discuss, kind of about Steven Matz, about the rotation as a whole. We'll get all into the Cardinals' plans for that six-man squad in our next segment. First, though, here's Arena Club.
Oh, Todd Father. Remember the good old days when we would have the cards in the binders, but then they'd get all messed up and we're trying to sell online and it's just real clunky? They really actually weren't the good old days, were they?
No, they were definitely not. But now there's a better way. The Arena Club has been dominant with this. You get to trade your cards, you could sell them. But the best part for me is getting them graded. I love everything about that. This new age of getting cards graded. You could display them on your online showroom, your mobile device. It's the coolest thing in the world.
Whether you're buying, selling, trading, or displaying, Arena Club is the all-in-one trading card platform. You have to sign up for an account at arenaclub.com/foul. Just like Todd Father mentioned, there's a process that combines AI and human grading to get the job done. Right now, 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/foul. Use code FOUL. That's arenaclub.com/foul. Code FOUL for 20% off your first purchase.
So we've known for a long time that the Cardinals' six-man rotation would officially start today. And the reason that we're seeing that is because the Cardinals are currently in the midst from April 11th to May 7th, just one scheduled off day. So up on The Athletic Thursday morning, you should see it. We broke down why the Cardinals hope. This is the second time in 3 days my cat has crashed the party. I don't know where she's hiding when I start this, but it's like she knows I'm busy. Okay, sorry.
That's a nice tabby there. That's very pretty girl.
And
I have a cat in the next room. She was hollering to get in, but I just had to say no for now. So.
I get it because she's not supposed to be out here. But my suitcase is out. I'm packing for New York. I leave tomorrow, and I think she knows. So we'll just roll with it. Back to our scheduled programming.
Sure.
On The Athletic, we detailed why the Cardinals hope a six-man rotation will keep their starting pitchers healthy. This is the reason you're going to see the Cardinals use a six-man. Sure, it has a little bit to do with working Matz in, like we talked about, but there were many reasons when I sat down with Ollie Marmol and Dusty Blake about why a six-man rotation is so important. And we'll break it down by categories. First one, protecting pitcher health. MLB released a report, as I'm sure you all know, in December, highlighting the rises of pitchers' injuries. And the month where it happens the most is March and early April. So that's always going to be cognizant in the Cardinals' minds about how to protect their starting pitchers. And then we're going to go down. Another thing, the lack of depth presents another layer to consider. The Cardinals don't have a ton of depth outside of Michael McGreevy that they consider major league ready. So are there guys that could be ready at some point, like Quinn Matthews, Tink Hens? They're both on the injured list at this time. But if something happened to a pitcher right now, that they feel like outside of Malcolm McGreevy, there's really no option that could come up and be a formidable starter. This is going to keep Matthew Liberatore in the rotation as well. We've talked about this importance of this all season. It's been something the Cardinals have been really adamant about. And lastly, Bernie, as I'm sure you figured out, the six-man rotation is for now, but it's not forever. The Cardinals will reevaluate after the off day against the Braves series. I believe that's the 24th. And I highly doubt, just based on the scheduling, that they will continue to do it after May 7th. So now that we know this,
that was a very fine presentation. I felt like I was sitting in a classroom again.
Like a professor.
Yeah. Professor Woo. All right. I like it. No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I interrupted because I'm trying to be a little mirthful. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, it's okay. I have maybe 5 total brain cells right now. So we'll just roll with it together. Knowing what we know and how this is laid out, is the 6-man rotation necessary?
Oh man, I don't know how to answer that. I was talking to Ollie about this too, and you spent more time with him than I did, but he pointed out that he thinks his pitchers can benefit from having that 5th day of rest. And I was doing some research on that because that's what I do. And, I found out, and I want to, hat tip to Mike Picciello of MLB.com. Because back in late January, he wrote about, the idea is a 6-man rotation coming. It seems like these teams want to do it. But he didn't have an entire list. But he went and studied like how the percentage of days between starts continues to increase. Like pitchers now are more and more and more pitchers are operating on 5 days rest rather than the traditional 4 days rest. And Petrello seemed to think that that's a sign of things to come, although there won't be enough teams that are going to go all in. And the Cardinals aren't going all in. As you pointed out, this is probably temporary. But I don't know how to – I have a hard time. I think it's all conditional. Like, for example, we all know the worst-case scenario is if your starters, just get bombed out of starts early. Then your bullpen's is going to get crushed. And Ali said, well, yeah, but we have more flexibility now because we have more guys that we can send out on options. They have options left, so we can be more flexible using that Memphis shuttle and so forth. So, I mean, I understand his point. But if these guys can consistently, most of them can give you 6 innings. Maybe that's too much to ask for. But if they get enough of, say, 6-inning starts, they can make this work, and I think there are benefits to it. But there is a downside. There is a potential risk. Your bullpen will get gassed. So we have to wait and see how it plays out. And, the other thing, too, is, okay, what do they do? What did they do? And I don't want to keep picking on Miles Michaelis, but what did they do? Who was great on the show the other day. That was good. But what do they do if Matz is pitching really well and Michaelis has a couple of really bad starts? What do they do there? How would they justify being able to bounce Matz back to the bullpen? They could justify it by saying, oh, but he's so good in relief too. So and I don't think Miles would be. I could be wrong about that. So that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, I think for what they're trying to do right now, preserving pitcher health, I think it makes sense because when we talked about this when McGreevy didn't make the roster outside of camp, they really don't have a lot of depth in AAA. And sorry, hold on.
Sure.
This is going to be a lot. Okay, you have to go. Give the people what they want.
Poor baby.
Give the people what they want, but you have to go. I'm so
poor
sorry.
Baby.
I know.
See, she knows mom's leaving. She's got anxiety.
She does know. Because her attitude changes.
Cats always sense stuff. They're brilliant that way. They know. They just know. Anyway, go ahead.
But what was really important about this strategy was, and this is something that both Ollie and Dusty reiterated in our brief conversations, even today, that 5 days rest is real. Mm-hmm. All the way through this up until Wednesday. Only one starter, one time, Eric Fedde versus Pittsburgh on April 9th, operated on the traditional 4 days of rest. Every other starter, because of the scheduled off days, has been able to be on the 5-day rest. And that helps everybody, especially early on, especially in the season, part of the season where injuries for pitchers are, the most common. And Eric Fedde talked about it yesterday. He said, yeah, that extra day of rest, obviously we want the ball as much as possible, but our goal is to be pitching in meaningful games in August and September and October too. So this extra day of rest in April is super important. And if the Cardinals have a stretch like the next 3 weeks, or I know we're halfway through week 1, where they don't have anything but one scheduled off day, and this is going to keep their guys on that 5 days rest and keep them sharp so that they are effective in during the rest of the season. I get it. I have the same issues as you with the bullpen that, is going to have to cover innings and could be taxed easily. But Ollie is right. They can use the Memphis Express. They have that ability. They also have multiple guys in that bullpen that can pitch multiple innings if necessary. Is it the most perfect plan? No. But the logic behind it, and I encourage you all to read it in The Athletic, I think is sound, it's solid, and it's justified. If someone goes down in the rotation, you have McGreevy. And I think everyone's okay with that. McGreevy's ready now to come in the rotation. If someone else goes down, who do you have? And are any of those options better than what you currently have in the rotation? My personal opinion, no. So, and the guys that were supposed to be there that were spot starters, Zach Thompson, Drew Rom, they're hurt. So they really have virtually no depth behind McGreevy. If this is what is the best path that they believe is going to keep these starters healthy so they are pitching in meaningful games in the second half, doing a 6-man rotation for 2.5 weeks I'm really not going to lose that much sleep over.
No, there is no question about it. The Cardinals are very thin on depth right now, and I'm not trying to say that Quinn Matthews was on the verge of being called up, and certainly Tink Hence is not. But some of my friends who follow prospects and are really knowledgeable thought that, hey, Cooper Jerpy will be up here. He's really good. So they've got all three of those guys are sidelined. For example, a guy that could have maybe emerged as a depth option later in the season, a guy like Jerpy, he's got that weird delivery that befuddles hitters. He's not an option. Hence is not an option. Matthews is not an option, and they're going to be really, really careful with him. Now, Takao Roby's been really impressive. Now, is he moving? I'm going to use the word runway. Is he moving?
Wow.
Is he moving up on the runway a little bit? I mean, he's been really impressive. I'm not saying, okay, he's ready for the majors, but he's worth monitoring for sure. It's been pretty great what he's been able to do so far.
He's nasty. He's got great stuff. The issue with Takao Roby is that he's only thrown 40 innings in the last 2 years, so they have to build him up. They're not going to just rush him and throw him in there. He has to build some sort of a foundation. And for those of you who missed it, 2022 first-round pick Cooper Jerpy, the organization announced on Tuesday, he underwent season-ending Tommy John surgery. His timeline, it will be back hopefully midway through 2026. Really disappointing news for Jerpy. Matthews is on the injured list as well. That's just kind of more of a general soreness, and they don't think it's going to be super long. Tink Hens, of course, started the year on the IL with right rib cage discomfort or strain. So yeah, really, they're not lying to you this time. The Cardinals don't have a ton of depth outside of McGreevy, and they really need to preserve their starting pitching so that if McGreevy starts pitching well and forces his way into the conversation, that's a different story. But right now, his biggest value is in Memphis because the second something goes down, they're going to need him.
No, this all makes sense. It really does. In other words, if I thought they were doing it for other reasons that had very little to do with very careful planning and also taking really good care of their starting pitchers, because as Ali told you and he told me the other day as well, April and getting on in early May, those are the kind of the danger zones. There's a lot of injuries. And how many times have we seen rotations in general? The starters are really good. They may have like 3 really good starters. They get to the postseason and 2 of them are cooked. Let's talk about Eric Fetty. The Cardinals traded for him last year because he was so dominant for the White Sox. I mean, it's hard to win games for the White Sox. And on the first day of the trade, he gets in Ollie's office and he goes, "Hey, look, I'm happy to be here, but I am gassed." And you could see the way Fetty pitched over the last 2 months of the season. He wasn't a different pitcher because he was tired, because the White Sox did not prioritize player health and longevity. And I think the Cardinals are really trying to do that here. And that's a sign of progress, because like too often they've had an aversion to, quote, think outside the box. They even when they were winning and they were proud of their analytics department and everything else, they stayed with the traditional model. They were stubborn about staying with the model. I think Jeff Luhnow probably wanted them to do, to try to go out there and break new ground on some things. They just wouldn't do it. They were so interesting in those times because for all of the really good work that was being done by the analytics department, the Cardinals were sticking to their old school doctrine. They would never acknowledge it, but they were. So I personally really like just what this represents. It represents a smarter organization, and that can only help the team go now and in the future. So it's a really good discussion, isn't it? I've enjoyed this because there's a lot of layers to this and I appreciate what you wrote today. And I know that a lot of people will read it because it really does explain a lot. And I know so many Cardinals fans are skeptical of everything. I get it. It's one of those times.
I get it. When the organization hasn't been super transparent with you for years, I get it.
And listen, you and I both know this too. It's still going to come down to resentment of Miles Michaelis. You know, I think that's part of it, that he's one of the 6. I don't feel that way because I understand that he's got to be part of the 6 if you're going to go with 6 right now. They really don't want to do anything to take McGreevy out of his routine. You know, but I get that fans are saying, well, wait a minute, but we know McGreevy's better than Michaelis. People are going to get mad at me for saying this because, listen, I'm not a fan of Michaelis's pitching, believe me, but I do understand their thinking on this, at least for now. Now, a couple months from now, I may not understand their thinking on this. So we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. But I thought he was pretty good. Michaelis was pretty good the last time out. And I don't mean to ramble, but I wrote a piece today, and it was really interesting. If you put Fedde and Michaelis side by side, you know, it's really interesting because Michaelis has a higher strikeout rate than Fedde, and he's got a better walk rate than Fedde. But what's happening is the batting average against him balls and plays like 183. Against Michaelis, it's 356. That would be my eyes. My point is, I'm not saying Miles Michaelis is great, but we all look at Fedde as being really superior. You look at his fielding independent ERA and his expected ERA. Michaelis has actually been better than Fedde so far this season. I know that's weird. I know that's counterintuitive, but it's true if you sort of dig underneath the surface numbers.
I think it's worth monitoring Miles Michaelis for at least 2 more starts and seeing how he does. And, you know, maybe this is a conversation that we forget about because he turns it around, or maybe it's not, but it is something to monitor. I agree with you as the Cardinals adventure through the 6-man rotation. We'll get to more about the series against the Astros, but first, a quick message from FanDuel Sports Network. All right, so during this Cardinals 4-2 homestand, Brendan Donovan continued his electric April. He is our FanDuel Sports Network player to watch going into a 4-game set in Queens against the New York Mets. Brendan Donovan, after today, he's hitting .380. That is the highest average in the National League, and is 27 for 71. Those 27 hits, the most hits in the Major League. Bernie, what are you seeing from Brendan Donovan?
Man, he just has like such sharp awareness of everything. Like he is just every cliche in the book. He's just so locked in. He's seeing every pitch. He knows his own strengths. He's not trying to stray from it. He's really, really disciplined. Every now and then he'll take a hack to try to hit one out of the park. But man, there's just no complaints there. And I've always enjoyed watching him play. Really love watching him play. He's such a great competitor. He's such a smart player. So would I like to see him maybe take a few more walks? Yeah. But again, I call, he's a 12-game hitting streak. The Donnie doesn't. I mean, he's just killing it right now. And so don't change a thing at the moment, but he's fun to watch, and you can put him anywhere in the lineup, and you pretty much put him anywhere on the field. He's really a high value player for the Cardinals. Really like him.
Yeah, I agree. And I remember when we first saw the open day lineup, you and I talked about it, and I said I didn't love Donovan in the 3-hole because I didn't think he profiled as a number 3 hitter. But this just goes to show how much I know, because he's looked real good right there. And I would agree it would be nice for him to walk a little more, but if he's having numbers like this, I don't think anyone's going to complain. I'm getting eaten alive by my cat right now. This is such a disaster episode. She just snagged my sweater.
You just got to take a little box of those temptations and just scatter them on the floor, and then
I don't know where she came from. I keep trying to put her away.
She'll be preoccupied by the treats.
But with Donnie, okay, ow. We're gonna do this for the rest of the episode. With Donovan,
this is great.
He's your everyday player, and as we look at the transition season, the runway, if you're looking at players to build around, I'm building around Brendan Donovan. He, like you said, he can play around the diamond. You can hit him basically 1 through 9. And he just goes out there and he plays every day. If you ask the Cardinals clubhouse what they respect about him the most, it's the fact that he posts and he's not going to take games off. And you have a lot of guys that in this day and age probably aren't going to do that. So even though he's 27, 28, I think he plays with the maturity and the sense of a veteran.
Mhm.
And I don't think there's any questions about his long-term future with the Cardinals from my perspective. Of course, with the new front office, that could change. But if I'm building a team, I'm centering it around Brendan Donovan.
I think he's a Heim Bloom type of player. I really do. So, and then I'm looking forward to, and I probably shouldn't do this, but I sort of link Donovan and Nootbaar because, they could be game-changing players for the Cardinals. And, Nootbaar, of course, hasn't been able to stay healthy and has been way too many injury-related disruptions. But we're seeing it. Just how good he really is. Like if anybody was questioning his talent, which they never should have, in my opinion, this was all about durability. But when he played, he's really, really good player. And Ali made a terrific decision to put him in the leadoff spot. This guy has been exceptional as a leadoff hitter. I mean, he's giving you high on base, 422. He's slugging 463. He's got 3 bombs. He's driven in 10. Scored 7 runs. I mean, that's the kind of thing where you're like, wow, that's what a leadoff hitter should be. I'm not hung up on leadoff hitters stealing a lot of bases. I want to see them get on base at a high rate. I don't give a damn about them stealing bases. If they're not built to steal bases, there's just no point in forcing the issue. So Donovan and Nootbaar are like as a tandem, they are so essential to the success of this offense. And one of the reasons why the offense is so good coming out of the gate is both of these guys are playing and they're in great form. And it just shows you what they can do because both of these guys, I'm sorry to ramble, but I actually get very enthusiastic talking about
No,
them.
I like this. I'm learning.
These two guys are also unusual in that it's not like they're helpless against left-handed pitchers. In fact, Nootbaar's got a terrific career OPS against left-handed pitchers. Donovan not quite at Nootbaar's level, but Donovan is more than respectable against left-handed pitching. So you never have to worry about, oh, geez, I better sub him out and pinch hit, right-handed hitter here, or they're starting a left-hander today, so I can't start both of those guys. No, they defy that old school norm. They're really, really different. They're unique in a way. And that's such a plus for the Cardinals if Nootbaar especially can stay on the field.
I agree. I really like what we're seeing out of those two lefties at the top of the lineup, in case you missed it. Brendan Donovan, and we'll throw an honorable mention to Lars Nootbaar, big 3-run homer today in that 4-1 win over the Astros. Your FanDuel Sports Network players to watch. You can now stream the St. Louis Cardinals games through FanDuel Sports Network. And if you use the promo code BASEBALL30, you can start it off with a 30-day extended free trial at FanDuelSportsNetwork.com/packages. This deal expires May 2nd, 2025. $19.99 a month after your free trial. Cancel during your free trial to avoid charges. Eligibility restrictions apply. Visit FanDuelSportsNetwork.com for details. All right, Bernie, before we get out of here.
Well, I had FanDuel Sports Network. I was giving it a workout last night, going back and forth between the Blues and the Cardinals.
Yeah, hey, can we get an LGB on the show?
Yeah, I know, that's right.
So Blues heading back to the playoffs, only 82 games, had them all the way.
They're a great story.
I think there's, as you know, Bernie, such excellent sports writers and throughout St. Louis. But my pal Jeremy Rutherford at The Athletic had a great recap of last Tuesday's big win. So yeah, let's go Blues.
That's my guy, GAR.
Yeah, he's wonderful. All right. Big road trip ahead to the New York Mets and the scuffling Atlanta Braves, but the Cardinals seem to never really play Atlanta all that well. Here's what I'm concerned about. 4 games in Citi Field, and I love going to New York. It's one of my favorite cities in general. I don't necessarily love covering baseball there because it's kind of just hard. I'm staying in Manhattan. You take the 7 to Queens. I'm a subway girl, but it's not that I'm worried about, Bernie. It's the fact that every time I've gone to Citi Field, some just absolute crazy shit has happened between the Cardinals and the Mets. And I don't know if I'm there yet, but I'm encouraged. I'm excited for the road trip. You'll see Andre Palante on Thursday, Miles Michaelis Friday, Matthew Liberatore Saturday, Sonny Gray on Sunday, and then the 3 against Atlanta. So do you have anything that you're looking for in particular against the Mets? It'll be a good test for this Cardinals ball club.
I haven't been following the Mets that closely, full disclosure, because I'm not going to try to fake it. So I just assume the Mets are going to be good, and I know they've had their ups and downs. But I just look at this whole thing as a really big test for the Cardinals. And I know I'm probably overdoing that. Hey, well, everything's a big test because it is April the 16th. But this team was awful on the road. This team's 8-4 at Busch Stadium, and this team was so bad in Boston and Pittsburgh, so bad that I know a lot of fans. I know a lot of fans are looking at this as like a real credibility check for the Cardinals. It's not like, people are expecting them to go in there and take 3 out of 4 for the Mets and then go down and beat the Braves 2 out of 3. But they just can't have another travesty the way that 1-5 in Boston and Pittsburgh was. So this is a real opportunity for them to kind of prove something to people that might be really skeptical about them. And I know they don't think that way, but I'm just saying it. I think that's there. I think that's going to hang there as long as they struggle on the road.
That's how I'm looking at it too. I'd like to throw that road trip from a baseball perspective. The Pittsburgh went out the window just because it was not a good trip at all. And we'll see how this one goes. 4 days in New York, 3 days in Atlanta. You'll see every starter. You'll see Steven Matz again. So let's just see how it goes. Let's see if the Cardinals can maybe fix their road woes from their last week. We'll certainly see. Look, we'll say this all throughout April that it's early, but 9-9 on April 16th, I think it's a fine place to be, given what they sought out to accomplish, given what their messaging is. Let's see how they stack up against another contender. They did a nice job against Philadelphia and against Houston. And Atlanta, I know they're off to like a really bad start, but they're still a competitive club. They still have a lot of talent out there. So I'm excited to learn a little bit more about these St. Louis Cardinals over the next week or so.
I am too. And you just keep winning series. You just win series. And if you got to play for a draw, you get the draw rather than losing 3 out of 4. Again, I talked about this at the beginning, and I'll be real quick. By winning the 3rd game of the Philly series and the 3rd game of the Astros series, right? If they would have lost those 2 games, which was entirely possible, we'd be sitting here today talking about how the Cardinals had lost 5 out of their 6 series played so far, right?
You're right. That's exactly what I would have led with.
Because that would have been what everyone's talking about. Well, see, we knew they were going to be bad. And so I really admire the way, they're just like, nope, we're going to win these games. We're going to win the series. I mean, maybe I'm having these Newt Rockney fantasies or something. It's probably not that simple, but this team's got a mental toughness and a great energy surge, and they're hungry. And I think when they do what they did in this homestand, where this series is up for grabs, whoever wins game 3, for them to get both of those things, I thought that was a really good indication of maybe their competitiveness, maybe that they're going to get after it. They're really going to get after it. So
couldn't agree.
These are good early signs. Whether they'll translate over 162, have no idea.
We'll see. It's a long season. We have so much time together. Bernie, as always, love when you hop on the show. Thank you so much.
You got it.
We, at some point, will touch base with you all after the Mets series, maybe somewhere in between the Atlanta series. I don't know. Got a lot of things up in the air right now. Most importantly, though, Bernie, you have a hit at KMOX to do. I have a suitcase to pack. So Cardinal Territory, thanks as always for listening. We'll check back with you next week. Appreciate it.